Government's not going to come in and fix anything from what I've seen. We have to do it grassroots, locally, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood, neighbor to neighbor. At some point in time, we have to say, hey, maybe we need to make an adjustment. You know, you wake up every day with 300 problems, but I love my problems. So it works out pretty good.
Spartans, listen up.
We need to sleep better. So how do you sleep better? Never thought about it before. And so I met Jack, I met Essentia. Pay attention to the mattress you sleep on because it's loaded with chemicals.
Recovery, cooling, and pressure relief, all in one mattress. Up to 60% more deep and REM sleep. Less inflammation, faster bounce back. No toxins, no EMFs, no BS.
My buddy Jack over at Essentia, he's kind enough to give us a code for the Spartan community. That's DECA, that's Tough Mudder, all of us. Use Spartan25, get a discount. Prioritize your sleep so you can sleep faster, you can do more burpees, you can train more, you can get healthier. When you sleep well, you live well.
Welcome to the Hard Way podcast with Joe Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan Races. We're teaching you how to overcome your obstacles in your life the same way we teach our 10 million plus Spartans to overcome obstacles on the course, with insight from the smartest, most accomplished experts from every corner of the world. Get ready to elevate your life today.
Joe Sena here, CEO and founder of Spartan, host of the Hard Way podcast. Got my buddy Matt Prouty from Vermont on the podcast here. Welcome aboard, Matt.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Police officer, uniform service is my favorite.
Again, it's a double thanks for having me.
What's your superpower? I read a lot about what you're doing. I'm happy that you're doing it. Vermont should be happy. The world should be happy. What would you say your superpower is? And I want to get into your childhood.
I think the superpower is, I wouldn't even call it that, is I've been really on the human side of things in policing. We're all about people. Same thing, like even in the service. We're in the people business with soldiering. But in law enforcement, that connection with those folks in the margin that, just are really struggling, that's been a soft spot for me for a long time. And excelling in that area and making headway, that's been kind of my superpower.
Not funny, but growing up, my dad and the people in the neighborhood gave me as a kid the instinct to like, hey, you got to help yourself in this world. If you can't pull yourself up and solve your problem, like that's your problem. But I've got a soft spot too. I mean, at Spartan, we've had 12 million people cross the finish line. I've seen this thing fix a lot of people, but not everybody's fixable.
No, you're absolutely right. But again, that's where the mission part comes in, right? I'm not here to fix everybody, but I'm going to try my damnedest, as many as I can, have an impact.
What's the solution? Like if we're talking about homelessness, if we're talking about drug use, I think folks listening or watching would be shocked at the problem you've got in Rutland, Vermont. Probably not as pervasive as San Francisco, let's say, but it's a problem all across the United States. I sometimes, if I'm walking somewhere, could be Tokyo, anywhere, and I see, homelessness or I see drug use, I come up with ideas in my head on how to solve it, but it's probably easier said than done.
And I guess one thing that I encourage people to do is understand there's always more to the story. When you're walking down the road and you're seeing the individual, and man, there's probably a whole lot to unpack that you don't even know. We obviously don't know. And again, there's always more to it. As far as like, what can we do? And I think a lot of what you guys talk about, even on your show, often is when people come out of like addiction into long-term recovery, something happened. They found God. They were accepted by a group. So task and purpose is a big part of that. But getting there is, how do you get someone that has a very low self-esteem, made a ton of mistakes, feel like they're worth that investment? And that's sort of where I do my work.
I think you're absolutely right? A purpose is powerful. Community is super powerful. We don't know, it could be any one of us. We don't know how that person got there. We don't know what their situation in life was. But I always think when I see those situations on the street, man, we spend so much money as a country on so many things that are not even in our country. If we took a few dollars, whether it's out on a farm in Vermont or in the desert in Arizona or whatever, and built like a bunch of tiny little studio apartments and gave 1,000 people to me or somebody like you, or right? Like We could do some really good damage.
Hey, these things are already happening. There's a place look kind of like what you're talking about right outside of Austin. It's faith based, but they don't push any of their beliefs on it. But again, you're allowed to whatever you do in your little bungalow, you can do. But guess what? Thursdays and Tuesdays are your day. You're in kitchen detail. Oh, and everything outside where everyone can see, that's got to be clean. And you're going to contribute. I think those models are out there. I'm also at the point though where communities do have to find a ways to solve their own problems. I'm not a big fan of government's not going to come in and fix anything from what I've seen. We have to do it grassroots, locally, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood, neighbor to neighbor. That's where you really see the progress.
When you say communities got to do it, do you mean the government within Rutland, or you mean the citizens themselves?
I'm saying, well, a combination of both, right? But I'm saying that if Rutland is going to wait for Montpelier to fix his problems, we're in trouble. No, I might need some help on some policy here or there, but let's look at each other as neighbors, as professionals. There are things that we can do, but oftentimes, look, the easy thing is to say, government, look what you caused. Hey, and there's probably some truth to that, but I'm not going to sit back and wait for massive policy changes to make headway. We have to do that at an individual level, one by one, and that's where you move the metrics in that 10% of the population. It affects everything else. It's that 10% that use up 80% of the resources, and then there's everybody else that uses the other piece. So it's worth investing there.
No, that's interesting math, right? Like 10% of the folks, for whatever reason, don't judge, use up a lot of the resources. So it actually benefits the remaining part of society to solve this problem. And it's a good human thing to do. How'd you grow up that you care so much?
Well, I'm a gut boy here in Rutland, Southwest neighborhood. And when I say gut boy, that's a term of endearment for those folks that think it's a derogatory statement. It's not. Grew up in a Christian home. My father is a very religious guy. Used to do the prison ministry here at Rutland Jail on Saturday nights. And even as an adult, I was a cop. There was times I was bringing people in and he was coming out, and I'm like, I got another one for you, Dad. Preach to him. So that's kind of how I grew up on the human side of things. But I had an experience in probably 99 or 2000 here at the PD where a young man robbed a gas station up on Woodstock Ave with a brick, chased him down into the neighborhood, caught him. And when I got back to the police station, I said, I'm sure you didn't wake up this morning and say, I'm going to go rob a gas station with a brick. And he goes, no, my mom shot me up in dope when I was 13. I don't want to do any of this. But when I go through withdrawals and I feel like my insides are being ripped out of my body, you do some dumb shit like this so I can get $30 at the time. That's what it costs to get another ticket or another bag of dope. And I was blown away. And from that point on, every arrest I made, I would do an interview where I'm like, how did we get here? Tell me the story. I want to know.
I guess as humans, we don't take the time to ask the questions that you asked. And when you hear that, you don't think, oh, this is just a bad person. This is a person that has circumstances that turn them into somebody they don't necessarily want to be.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think that again, I can think of that moment. That moment changed everything for me. So I just started asking everybody, hey, tell me the story. How did we get here? It's like, and I'll even say, hey, no judgment. I'm just trying to educate me. So I can tell my other cops, hey, this is what was really happening. It was impactful, to say the least.
Are you making a positive impact? Are you seeing things change?
Well, first off, I was that traditional cop too. Loved to chase the bad guys. I was a canine handler for 13 years. I was all about the chase. Let's lock them up. But again, when you look at crime statistics, like, hey, we've done all of this work, nothing changed. At some point in time, we have to say, hey, maybe we need to make an adjustment. And we're in a position to do that. We're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have these mobile kiosks called police cars that we can market. We can meet. When you talk about meeting people where they're at, nobody does that better than the police. I now have civilian social workers that work under me, and they're amazing, and they can do things that cops can't do. They have time. Cops don't have time to be sitting there helping people with get their Medicaid and all this stuff. To be relevant in these other areas is amazing. And for us to look at policing that way, more of a public health model with public safety kind of thrown into it.
I love what you're doing. How do people find you?
We go to them. I do have cards. I have these hello, can I help cards that we put out because we started a laundry shower program for street homeless. If you want to get someone to engage in services, it's much easier to do after they've taken a shower because it's in that moment. And plus, when you get their laundry in and it's in the dryer, you're mined. No one's going to leave their wet laundry. So I have you for about 35 minutes where we talk about life and what our next steps are. But after people are clean, they've washed the street off them, and I let them I don't care, take 45 minutes in the shower. I give a shit. Wash your hair, do your thing, brush your teeth, get really clean. Now we talk about, hey, where do you want to go? You're an expert on you. I never tell people what to do because nobody's done anything because of Matt Prouty's unsolicited advice. But what I will say are things like, hey, you're an expert on you. You tell me, what can we do to help you get to the next step? What are your hopes and dreams? You'd be amazed at what they tell you.
How many people have you had through the program?
Oh my God, hundreds.
And the success you're seeing?
So sometimes you got to play the long game here. Sometimes it's not that first interaction. I had one individual that's housed and successful now, stable, but that was a year of going under a bridge every day and meeting this guy, hearing a barrage of superlatives and the whole thing. But I just kept showing up, try to be relevant, see if we can meet a need. And then finally, things broke down. Those barriers broke down. I was able to bring in some other social work people, do the warm handoff. So say, hey, I'm vouching for these two. Okay. You have to be very patient with this because, again, I'm dealing with very broken people, some super difficult mental health issues, along with substance stuff and co-occurring disorders. And that's why you need a team.
And so all these cities need basically what you're doing, but probably a lot bigger, many little armies of folks that care.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm a big fan, just like in the military, everybody's got a role, but we're all part of this, this section or squad or whatever you want to call it, or this thing, whether it's breaching teams, whatever. So for me, with our outreach care team, I'm the cop there, and they're supported by, I have a sergeant that sort of oversees my resource specialist, but I have people that aren't the police on this team. I have peers, peer-to-peer folks from the Turning Point Center. I have street outreach mental health people, folks from the substance use disorder group of the mental health organization. I have a nurse sometimes or an EMT that's coming from the Medical Reserve Corps. In that way, when you go out as a group, we're all kind of vouching for each other. But then when we're saying, hey, we're here for this problem, but then they pull up their pant leg and you see the big wound, well, now we can get the medical piece. It's just really cool how all that works out, and we're leveraging each other's abilities, and we're better because of it. As compared to each one of us going out under a bridge by ourselves, we would have no impact. But when the team's together, whole new ballgame.
What do total numbers look like if you have those stats across the United States?
Across the United States, I don't know. I think this trend is relatively new. A lot of places have been doing it as far as maybe having not the police doing this outreach. But I think it's fairly, I would say, very new having these teams where the police are the lead and we do the recon. And I think that's important because we know the street, and it's hard to convince executives in a nonprofit that want to send their people into space where they think they can be hurt. So I can go out and say, hey, this is going to be safe. We're going to be right here. Maybe I've even talked to the person. I said, hey, would you mind if tomorrow I'm going to come with a couple of the people? I can sell that to other organizations. Like, hey, we're not just letting folks go out and put themselves in danger. And I'm sure there's a lot of cities that they have street outreach folks that don't do it with the police. But there is something I think special when we're there. Now, I'll tell you, sometimes, Joe, I have the rapport that the civilians don't have. I might have arrested a guy a half dozen times, but he was also a victim 20 times. He was also a witness for me. Maybe I gave CPR to his kid. Who knows? it's just a cool dynamic.
How people that are listening or watching, what do you recommend to them on how to get involved, how to roll up their sleeves on this? This very pervasive issue everywhere.
I think that mindset of understanding there's always more to the story. It's easy to look at a segment of the population, and like you said, like, hey, get a job. Like it's things are more complicated than that. But look for volunteer opportunities. You could probably Google it in with your municipality or where you live, and then go out and meet folks that are doing that type of work. The faith-based community is probably the best at it because they do around the nation. They do soup kitchens, things like that. Your local food shelf. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time, but you can get an idea of what the challenges are in the population. Or if that's not your skill set, donate some cash to the United Way if you pick a couple organizations.
But we should all be doing something. I when I saw you were coming on the show, I thought, wow, I wasn't expecting this. But then I thought about it for a minute. I said, hang on a second. This is something that I've been thinking about for a long time, walking on any city street anywhere. How do you solve this problem? Not just for the community, but for that individual. So rare to see a police officer in uniform as many years as you were doing this. And I'm glad you're doing it.
No, look, I'm blessed. It's sort of like the gospel according to Bono type thing. So I had retired and went to do cool guy stuff with the army, and this whole position came up while I was actually retired, and then I came back from deployment. I was just living life, doing my thing, and walking down the sidewalk, and the chief of police was sitting on the guy's front porch. He goes, "Hey, I got a proposition for you. You want to come back and pilot this program?" And that's kind of how it started, Joe, with the civilians doing the outreach. And during that time frame, not long, maybe 6 months into it, we found that, hey, this is viable. The guy that was in charge of me, that commander, he took a chief's job somewhere else. So my old position came up again. So now we've hired 3 that are doing that work. And I'm blessed I'm passionate about it anyway. You wake up every day with 300 problems, but I love my problems. So it works out pretty good.
Yeah, not everybody gets to do that. Sometimes, it doesn't feel as purposeful and we're just dealing with our own nonsense, chasing the hamster wheel, right?
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for coming on board. If folks want to donate or help, what should they do?
So the United Way of Rutland County, if you're watching your local, you can donate there. Specifically tag Project Vision. That's the name of our community coalition. That's the money that I use when I'm trying to meet specific needs real time on the street. We pull out a little bit of petty cash until it runs out. That's also how we emergency house like our human trafficking victims, things like that, where we don't have a 3 o'clock in the morning, you're trying to figure out, hey, you got a street cop going up. What do I do? I've got this person. Where do we go? We can leverage that money. So we would appreciate any donations for that. It doesn't go specifically to the police department. It goes to the people that really need it. So.
I love it. I'm in Vermont for the next 2 weeks with we got our death camp going on here on the farm. So I'll come down maybe to Rutland and see you, or you could come up here if you happen to be coming through Pittsfield.
Yeah, well, I was supposed to be doing the Sherburner. I haven't ridden that yet. My daughter wants to get me up there. So
love to see you. Love to meet you in person.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.